Hi, I'm Marge Kinney, and today we're going to learn how to paint a sky. I'd like to show you a couple of the skies that I enjoyed painting. One is up by Grover Beach, and this is in Central California. I really enjoy walking among the dunes, and when they particularly aim towards the ocean and their final resting place is at the ocean. The second one is Sound of the Pacific Shore, and again that's in the Central California area. However, it's up by Monterey, where there are beautiful rocks and beautiful sunsets and absolutely beautiful, beautiful shoreline. And again, those are in California. So we're going to start today by making a sky. Here we go. I'm going to be using a filbert, and there are a lot of brushes that you can use to make a sky. Some people prefer this round brush where you can kind of swirl the sky, and I'm going to be using mostly my filberts. So here we go. If you notice, I have the canvas undertoned in gray, and I'll start out by putting a little bit of white up on the sky area, and I'm going to be using cerulean. Now, I do not use turpentine. In fact, I don't use any medium like that to clean my brushes or whatever. I'm called a dirty brush painter. To clean my brush, I use a very, very soft towel. When you feel these hand towels, you'd be surprised how some are very soft, like cloth, and others are rather stiff, and I really like the soft ones. Alright, now usually when you do a sky, in one corner it's dark. If you look across the skyline, you have the advantage, particularly when you're painting plein air, of seeing from one end of the horizon to the other. And you'll notice that the sky is never the same. And the other thing is that if you look straight up, because that sky is closer to you than the sky far away, it's usually much bluer. So as it gets towards the horizon, it actually becomes more aqua. So I'm just going to put in some white here. Like this, I have the dark tones and then the light tones. And I tend to like to make my clouds go off the edge of the canvas. Now as I come down closer to the skyline, I'm going to change the color to a little bit more aqua blue, because in real life that's kind of what it does. Turns a little more aqua. And some more white. Now, the clouds up above are actually closer to you, so they would normally be bigger. And as they get farther away, particularly when you're in Kansas or out along the plains, you'll see that they get very, very tiny along the horizon because they're actually very, very far away. Okay, once I get these kind of blowing along here, the bottom of the clouds tend to be flat because there's a lot of weight in them, and there's all kinds of ways of fluffing up the edges of clouds. I'm going to stick with this filbert for a minute. Now I'm going to wipe off my brush just a little bit and add, and I have a little bit of liquid here, which is a liquid medium type of preparation that makes my brush move just a little bit smoother. So I can come along and I'm going to add a little purple to the bottom of the clouds, because what happens is as a cloud gets heavy, it weighs a little bit more. So it gets a little bit deeper. Now I'm going to go to rose. Add a little bit of rose. I really enjoy doing this. You know, I wake up at 6:30 in the morning and I can hardly wait when sometimes I have artist block, but most of the time I can hardly wait to paint my next painting. You could say it's art therapy, but it's really a wonderful way to live, to become an artist. I was in the corporate world for many years and had no idea I would ever be an artist. But what do you know, here I am, and I have so much fun doing it. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of orange. It's kind of peachy tone. Notice that I keep switching my brush style of how I'm holding the brush. At this point I'm holding it like this, and sometimes you'll see me hold it like this. You can switch back and forth depending on what you're trying to do. Now I'm going to put a couple clouds in the front. They're just kind of wisping along. This is just one moment in my life for clouds, but believe me, every cloud I make is different and a new experience. So, and then if I want to make the top of the cloud just a little bit yellower, a little bit lighter, where it just has more light at the top, I'll take just a little bit of yellow in with the cloud. And again, I like to make these little tails on the clouds so they kind of go into each other. Okay, that's about it. And from there, if I were to make an ocean, you see that'll make a beautiful, beautiful start for a wonderful ocean scene. I'm going to put in a rock or two. Notice that I start with the rock being very dark because the base of the rock would have been dark, and any light showing over it would need to be able to see the cracks as being dark behind it. So we're going to have most of it dark to begin with, like that. Okay, now I can come back in. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow ochre. That original color was burnt umber. I'm adding a little bit of yellow ochre, and I'm going to gently take it across the top with the palette knife. Now the other thing I'm going to do is have this rock come down a little bit so that it will actually show as a shadow in the wave. I enjoy painting rocks a lot because I spend a lot of time by the ocean. I've painted every 50 feet of where I live in Laguna along the Heisler Park cliffs. After that, I began taking photos up along the Monterey Peninsula and find it's a little easier to do that in my studio. Alright, that gives us some rocks, and now I'm going to put in a little bit of ocean to get us going around these rocks. I've switched to a filbert brush, which I always enjoy using. It's my favorite brush of all of the different styles. There are 4 styles. One is a flat, one's a bright, and one's a round, and the last one is the filbert. Now you'll notice near the shore the water tends to get a little bit more turquoise because the water is more shallow, but as we go deeper into the water it gets darker. So I'm going to bring in some water there, and I'm kind of mixing it in with the white. Another color I like to use as part of it, this is Payne's Gray, and I will take a vertical stripe of Prussian blue, cerulean blue, Payne's Gray, and white, and I bring my brush across them several times, and then that makes the striation, that I can take to the ocean and work with it, so it gives me several colors to work with at once. Alright, this is kind of basically the general format for the water. And now for that wave, the water as it washes around the rock. Okay, I'm going to take some white. What it does is it circles. So you start here and you make an oval circle as it comes around this way. You have to remember that a rock is an extension of the mountain that's on land, and it comes out into the water. And so that's what these points are just a continuation of that mountain. Now if I have water coming behind this rock, it will emphasize the rock. Okay, in this area, a fan brush comes in rather handy. There are several ways that you can do that. One is flipping a toothbrush to get your little dots. Another is I can take a little rag such as this and have a little bit of splashes come behind the rock. Usually underneath a wave, you have a dark shadow. Kind of adds to it a little bit there. So that's kind of a quick description of how it looks. You can spend as much time as you want magnifying this and making it more beautiful. But that ought to give you an idea of how you can start your paintings and make them look very nice. Here's the finished product, except for adding more things at the bottom of the ocean. Okay. Start again with the other end of my brush by mistake, and I turn it around. Oh boy. Sometimes that happens when you get the wrong end going. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of this turquoise as it comes into the shoreline. By adding just a little yellow to that, it can make it kind of greeny, which is pretty. Okay, now I'm starting with the beach color here. Again, the gray undertone is very, very helpful. And we don't have to have that color be perfectly smooth, because if it's smooth, it wouldn't show the little punctuations there are in the beach, the irregularities. This is again where the water has made the beach wet, which would make it drier, or excuse me, darker. When we work on the seagulls, it's important to make sure that the brush is held firmly on the palette on both sides. You just brush down a little bit so that you get as narrow a tip as possible before starting the bird. So now we're going to take the brush, and as you come towards the center of the bird, you press down on the brush. Again, I'm going to flatten the brush on my palette, and I'll come up about 1/8 of an inch and give a slight swing upwards to the wing, almost like an airplane, how they have those tips of their wings upwards. Now we take the white, we make an undertone on the white, like so. Okay, now we're going to take the white, we'll try a bird over here so you can see it against the dark, and I'm going to come here, thicken it, come up 1/8 of an inch, like that, and then take a little bit of a dark tone, come under the wing here, and here. All right, so going through a dark sky, you can use a lighter bird. Going through a light sky, you can use a darker bird. Now usually a bird doesn't fly by himself, so I'm just going to add a couple of friends. And add the undertone. All right, so reviewing everything, we have the 2 different types of beaches with yellow ochre and tones of yellow. We want to make sure it's darker towards the water and lighter as you get towards the land because the beach is dry. The other color is with peach, and you would use a magenta and viridian tone, which would make a purple if you add white to it. And those 2 colors are beautiful, and you can do the same thing along the frontage area of the water and with a peachy beach, and both are beautiful. I hope you've enjoyed today. This kind of finishes off this picture. I hope you've enjoyed making the ocean, the sky, the rocks, seagulls, and beach. Thanks for joining me. Goodbye.